Hey,
Nailed
there you
it.
go.
Go us.
Man, this is awesome. Yeah. So, what's going on, Relax Reps listeners? This is a huge podcast for us. This is our first ever special guest, and we've been teasing this for a while. Having Kurt's Corner, we kind of peek fun at that here and there. Huge mentor of mine is coming on. So, yeah, Kurt Wilson. This is it.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
So we were talking a little bit before, and we had some good content talking about young strength coaches and them getting into this field and what we think it's important that they know. And I kind of openly shared, been a while since I've been on the strength and conditioning side of things, more in the personal training space now, but I can still kind of dust off that cap and hopefully put it on. Kurt unpacked it pretty well there. If you want to kind of recant some of that, young strength coaches coming in, they think it's all the stuff on the page, the program, and how fancy it can be, and the softer skills sometimes are the more important but harder to lean into. What you got here, Kurt?
Yeah, Dave, I think when we were talking earlier, I just think it's, the sterility of the classroom environment. Sometimes we think it's only coming from a book, so, and I think there's benefit to people that talking to other professionals that have been in the field, that currently are in the field doing those things. And so, first of all, I appreciate being on this show, because I think this is like a mini conference that we kind of get spoiled in, being able to talk about these things all the time. And so I appreciate that piece, but it's a way for me to learn. It's a way for me to hear other opinions so that that I can deliver directly back to our young people, and kind of give them a sense of, the private sector, give them the sense of what it means, like outside in the coaching and collegiate environment or the high school environment. Yeah. And I think that when we can close that book and kind of look at some skills, like being able to organize yourself, being able to communicate, which I think is huge, conflict resolute, those sorts of things is what I see young professionals, having the most struggle with. And so honestly, when I can bring those pieces back, and I think mentoring is kind of an overused term sometimes, but more or less explain the crap that I've been through in upper education while dealing with collegiate athletics for almost 27 years now at ONU. I think I've been open to a lot of just personalities and those sorts of things that have really shaped me. And if I can give these kids an opportunity to not have to make all the same mistakes that I did, to learn from them, then let me share some experience with them. And even if I didn't handle them the appropriate way initially, what did I learn from that so that they in turn don't have to do that again? And I think the other thing is just bringing people in from the outside to my courses. So I've had Luke come in. I had Coach V come in last week. I've had stick and ball coaches like our lacrosse coach come in, track, just to reiterate some of the messages we're doing, so that then they can link that strength conditioning and stick and ball coaches can get along. We can do those things. We need to have those interactions to kind of sell. That's a poor term, but to kind of just emphasize what we want to do in our world so that they can better understand what's going on. And then also athletic training as well. That's a field that I know very well. And so, kind of coming from that, just linking them all together and seeing that in the right environment, people can play nice.
Yeah. And you have an interesting background too, where you've been at Ohio Northern for a really long time, but also I think there's a very interesting path where you were in athletic training for a very long time, and you kind of branched out and created more strength and conditioning opportunities. And I think it'd be awesome for you to kind of touch on that and talk about maybe like some differences or different challenges that you've seen, whether that's communication or like, just the X's and O's of it. But I'd love to hear you talk about that too.
The path for me was definitely unique. I think, coming into athletic training, that's what I went to school for. Went to Manchester College, worked for the Indianapolis Colts for a while in athletic training field, and then went to Western Michigan to figure out my graduate work, and was working with baseball and football there. And so when I was there, I've had some incredible people over the top of me, mentoring, guiding my way. But I think some of the best things they did for me was put me in leadership roles early. And I think what happened with those pieces is I failed almost immediately. Right. So I think there's a little bit that I bring back to now, and you may call it old school, or they may call it old school a little bit, but I think sometimes this protection piece that we put around them and to keep them from making mistakes is sometimes what they need to kind of make a bigger impact. And so, coming to Ohio Northern, I took over the head athletic training role shortly with it. When I got there, I was the head athletic trainer up until 2020. So when you're in that role, it's very similar to a strength and conditioning role at the collegiate level, because your support staff, your schedule is operating off of somebody else's schedule. It's not yours. I can't get my oil changed when I want to. The football coach can get their oil changed when they want to, right? Yep. So you kind of develop that mindset. But I'll be honest with you, shortly into my career there, I wanted to not work as much with unhealthy people. And I found myself loving the late stage rehab portion of post-op ACLs and those sorts of things. So very early on, when I started at Northern, I pursued my CSCS and loved it. And it was at that point I started going to conferences, doing those things while maintaining my professional job was not strength and conditioning. But then we had no strength and conditioning coach. I was doing some programming, which I thought was better for ONU at the time. And so doing some of those things, I really got to see both sides of it. And now having, done some stuff at the high school level, as far as volunteering and doing those things, I found out that as a 40-year-old at the time, I have everything figured out, right? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to teach power cleans on whistle command. We're going to do 3-step, all this stuff. And I'm like, this is not, I go up there again with the book knowledge, right? I'm going to come in. I've seen people do this. Well, when you have 8 racks and 54 kids and 6 people walk in late, it doesn't always work, right? And so you're like, your best plans are your ability to adjust. And so then when you can start to explain real life things to people and shut the book as a prof and go, this is what the book says. But the reality is, if you're at ABC High School and they have 8 racks and 105 kids, probably not going to happen. And if you got 30 minutes. So I think, 2020, obviously COVID happened. 2020 was my son was going to play college football. I didn't want to be associated with collegiate athletics at that point. So I actually told them I didn't want to do. I got offered the position for head athletic trainer to stay. Our AT program was going out because they were all moving to graduate level programs.
Yeah.
So I said, listen, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to stay, but I don't want to be the head athletic trainer. And then they kind of had to make a decision of what they wanted to do. If they wanted to keep me, what was the capacity going to be? And then they asked me if I wanted to start a strength major. So I was like, this is cool. This is a cool challenge. Let's try to do it. It's been crazy challenge because there's no guidelines, right? Now there's a little bit more. There's no textbooks. There's nothing like that. So constantly trying to blow up classes. It's almost like writing workouts, right? You think they should know this, and then all of a sudden you find out they don't really need to know this. It's not practiced as much and those sorts of things. So to me, it's constant change, just like what we've talked about and been through. But I like it for my career choice. And now, Luke, to kind of and Dave, to wrap it all up, like my journey as far as that goes, it's put me in a situation now where we got double majors from exercise phys that want to go into PT, OT, AT. And then we got strength coach majors that are both majoring in strength and conditioning, but for different reasons. It allows me to give opportunities for them to learn from rehab examples and real life strength examples with healthy people. And then also they're sitting in the same room going, I have a better respect for this profession. I'm learning a lot of things in this. And then they're sitting in the same room going, yeah, you know what? ATs just don't tape ankles and get out water and doing those sorts of things. So this mutual respect of like just staying in our lane, but we could kind of help each other and extinguishing that fire in the high school stands, if you know what I mean. Just when somebody starts bad mouthing one of the professions, it's just, hey, time out. They're not all like that.
Yeah.
And literally I give dad speeches like that. You should be the one extinguishing this, because as a profession, we can't take little cuts, right? We can't do that. And so we've got to make sure that we're extinguishing those as a professional later on. So yeah, it's a weird journey, I would say, but here we are in year 27. I don't know that I would enjoy anything different day to day. I think if you'd ask me, I'd go, there's some days I'm like, I feel like I'm beating my head against the wall, but who doesn't?
Yeah,
True.
seriously.
So much to unpack there. So much to unpack there.
Yeah. Sorry.
No,
No,
that was
great stuff.
fantastic. That was awesome. I think something that I'm thinking about too is just what you just said there is I always think of like Undercover Bosses, if you've ever seen that show. And they
Yeah.
kind of have to like fill different roles. And when I had the interns at Ohio Northern, it was definitely that case where you would have somebody that is very inclined to physical therapy or athletic training, and they'd have to come into a setting with me at like 6 a.m. with, volleyball or football or somebody, and really get them out of their comfort zone. And by the end of the semester, they were always super appreciative of that experience, just so they could understand what the other parts of the organization are going through. And the other way too. And I always, it was funny because you would have strength conditioning majors that are big strong guys or whatever, and just wouldn't be able to do the job as good as some of these athletic trainers can, or like people that are more inclined to that. And it was just interesting, like, hey, you might want to think about actually doing this as a profession. Like, you're really good at this. This is kind of opening up a different avenue for you that you didn't even think about, And I really thought that was an awesome part of that experience, and kind of very unique to Ohio Northern. Definitely not the case when, I mean, I can speak on Otterbein right now, and Otterbein in the past. Like, that's definitely not the case there and other places. So
Yeah, I think we're kind of in a position now where, Dave, I don't know if you know, my wife's the program director for Exercise Phys. So, she's sitting over there kind of in a similar path that what we're, and we talk every day. It's like when we talk to kids that are in Exercise Phys that are interested in PT and AT, and they go, I just don't know how much strength I want to do. I hear her over there say, there's no other place that you can get 55 credit hours in strength and conditioning, right? You need to take advantage of as much of this as you can, whether you think that's what you're going into or not. And I think that that's so true. And trying to create an environment where we want you to learn. And then if you get the double major, great. If you get the minor, great. And we think that you're going to get through it and you're going to want to do it. But why don't you just learn to learn right now, whether it be for rehab, for your PT, AT kids, simply programming for some of our kids, like Luke brought up, Dave, it is simply talking to people. Like some of our kids will write in their journal, like, I got done delivering this great speech, fire up speech to them, and then I didn't know how to end it. And they're like, okay, ready, go. And they just tailed it off with this long. And I'm like, this is such a good point that we should really talk. Like, how do you end this big crescendo? And then all of a sudden, like, they're just staring at you like cattle. And you're like, oh crap. I was hoping that everybody would bring it in, rah, 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 and then go to their racks and start. And it's like, oh my God, they don't teach you that in the Essentials of Strength and Conditioning textbook. But that's a real life fear of some of these kids. And so that loops it back to my point. Those first journal entries that Luke's talking about from some of those minor kids, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't want to do the minor simply because you're going to make me do the practicum piece. And you got little, you got kids that don't say boo, and they're going to be in a position where they're talking to people. And that's constantly what we're working on. Or maybe not even work out as much, but now we have kids that this is the honest God truth. And it's so cool. We have kids staying around with our strength coach now and lifting and doing those things because their fear of being unprepared when they're in their environment is real. And so when they experience it, they know it better. And that's the best thing for me. It's like, you felt that uncomfortable that you thought you had to do something. Not me making you do it. You thought you had to do it. And I always say to kids, why do you feel uncomfortable? And they're like, I usually feel better when I'm prepared. Well, right. So put yourself in a situation where you feel ready to go. Like what makes you feel the best about that thing? And if that means rehearsing, what you're going to say and doing those things early on, great. Right. It's those sorts of things have to happen, but you need to get comfortable. We say comfortable, that my kids will hate it, but comfortable with being uncomfortable. Right. You have to get in those positions. And I think it starts with little things. And so Michelle and I in the group there, we really try just to instill little things daily, like just being on time to things, doing those sorts of things, being responsible about responding to emails, like just little things that we we talk about like, oh, did you get my email? Oh yeah, I got your email. Well, how am I supposed to know you got my email?
Yeah.
Right. And so then when you do that, right, you leave that up for interpretation. Now I go, you're ignoring me, Dave. What's going on? What, do you not think this is important? Meanwhile, you sit on emails, and if I don't respond to them in a 12-hour period, you're texting me or you're emailing me right away. Did you get my email? So if you want me to reciprocate that piece, and we'll have those real conversations, right? And just remember, I still love you, but some days it's easier than others. But today's a tough one for me because you're not doing what I asked, right? And it's real, like that's real with them. And I think they appreciate that a little bit more once they get to know me in those pieces. I tell prospective students, I teach like a coach, and I coach, and people will oftentimes coach like they teach. And I think it's just very matter of fact for me.
A lot of great stuff in there. Going back, I was taking notes as you were talking. So if I circle back to the beginning here,
no, let's go.
When you started, you were talking about all the things that you try to teach students, and one of them that my ears perked up for is conflict management.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a lost art.
Yeah.
You know, again, they're trying to unpack a lot, but keep it succinct. It's intimidating for a young coach, and I was there, to go up to someone you don't know and be like, hey, you're doing this wrong. You're not hinging the way we should. And if that's your mental frame for it, well, you're always going to be intimidated because no one wants to go into that interaction and bring hostility, because then it'll be, reciprocated, like you said. And I think for a lot of people, it's such an uncomfortable place. And the good coaches kind of lean into that, right? It's not, hey, I'm telling you that you're doing something wrong. It's, I'm telling you, here's how we want to do it better for better benefit for you. And it's how you present it. And Luke, you and I have worked alongside people that maybe steer away from that more confrontational side.
Oh yeah.
And I think it is an art. It carries over into the professional side too. Like you said, right? If someone doesn't respond to an email, the more tactful way is, hey, do you think this is important? Because you didn't respond with anything, so I would assume maybe it's not. That's pretty tactful versus, hey, you didn't reply to my email. What's wrong with you? Now that's obviously more abrasive. So like, that's such a lost art in this day and age where I don't know, people just are just so reactive and so quick, and things escalate so quick. It's so tough to do, but more important than ever.
Yeah, I think, man, talk about a lot to unpack. Like we could talk like 15 minutes just on that, because I think that, simply by tone, if you walked into some of my interactions, right, when you say, oh, you don't respond to an email, how the hell am I supposed to know, right? Like that, if you walked into that, you go, oh my gosh, that guy's a little rough around the edges, right? And so here's the thing, though, that I try to tell our students that about our relationships with coaches that I think they miss now. And this a hasty generalization, right? Because it's not all of them. Just like I'm not my dad when he says every one of them, right? Like I'm like, it's not the truth, right? So then you come back into this and you go, to me, it's about teaching them that the value of establishing a relationship before there's conflict, right? Because there's this honeymoon period where you're new at a facility where you're going to get away with a lot more than I can because I've already established what's happening. So it's like dating, anything else. You kind of get into that realm. There's going to be a lot more freedom with what you say, what you get away with, excuse me. And so I think sitting down with those coaches when they don't expect you to be there, I tell them those things. We can't use this all the time. Like we have to physically be there because this cat sitting in this chair, I feel very comfortable communicating with this, but I would rather have you sit down as a young professional and sit in my office. That would mean much more. And I go, Dave, man, that was awesome today. And I would text you back because you may feel a little more comfortable with that, but I would text you back and go, I really appreciate the effort you made because I know that you're not always comfortable. That's not the environment you did. And I know that was a huge step today. Thanks. Right. Like we need to be able to interject that back and forth. I think that just doing some of the things, like I'll tell them about meeting up with our lacrosse coach on Saturdays, bringing donuts and Mountain Dew, figuring out he didn't like coffee, bringing those sorts of things, and just sitting down and let's talk about what's going on, asking him questions about lacrosse. I didn't know anything about lacrosse. I don't want to cover a sport that I don't know about. So now sitting down and having him educate me, it made me in a subservient role, right? It made me the student and him the teacher. Guess what started happening with injuries and AT stuff? No longer does he go, oh, this kid's practicing today. This kid's doing this stuff today. Why don't you go talk to Kurt? Why don't you do those things? So it just kind of puts you in the same process. And I tell them all the time, don't talk to them when you need them. Talk to them way before that, because then it makes the conversation when you need them much easier. And then, you know what? You can be a little more abrasive. I think you can kind of I cut to the chase. Like after I've established a relationship, I'm just like, okay, now, you know what? Why didn't you respond to my email?
Yeah.
And then I'll let them flounder and I'll go, you want me to respond to yours, right? And then here we go. And then they get it. They're just like, I'm not even going to say anything, right? It's just one of those things. So I think I'll tell them about our conversations, like conflict conversations. Yeah. I always let the other person talk first. Like if I know I have a conflict with somebody, I'll let them talk first, right? So they come in, what do we got going on? We're not seeing eye to eye. Tell me what we got going on. Because most of the time you're sitting there pinging back things in your head, right? And then when you start to give your rebuttal, you simply say, Dave or Luke, just listen to me. I gave you the courtesy to listen to you. But what you have the ability to kind of hear their play. Right. So there's just things like that I think I had to learn the hard way because I've been caught in the other trap. Right. Yeah. And then you're like, oh crap. They right and left bowered me. Bam, bam. Right. It's like, gosh, I don't have anything to beat that.
Yeah.
A couple of things again, as you were talking. So it sounds like build rapport is kind of king amongst it all, right? Because I mean, if we're gonna go up and critique a youth athlete, we want there to be some context to it because we were talking about it before we hit record. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. I think that's very true. Yeah. So building rapport obviously is king. There was also something else, setting up the ask, you said don't talk to them when you need them. Which is your phrasing, right? Simon Sinek, who has written a couple of books, and I talk about his stuff a lot, gave the example of, if I write you an email or a text or a call and I say, hey, how have you been? How's the wife been? How are your students? How's work? How's the pets? How's da-da-da-da, go down this whole checklist of, checking in. And then at the end I say, by the way, would you mind writing me a letter of recommendation? It's like, you didn't write me because you cared. You wrote me because you need something. That's gross. Right. Ew. Versus if I switch around and say, hey, I know we haven't talked in a while. I was curious if you'd write me this letter of recommendation. That aside, how are things going? Da-da-da-da-da. It hits very different because the ask is up front. It's like, hey, it's very clear what you're reaching out about. And yeah, we can talk about all this personal stuff. But when you set it up like you care to pull the rug out from underneath, it's gross. It's gross. And people feel it from a mile away. It's like, coach. Yeah. It's why, coaching, the phrasing matters, right? It's not like, hey, you did this great, you did this great, you did that great, but it's like, coach, come on. You don't want to be the coach where every athlete hangs their head when you walk over. You know what I mean?
That is so true. That is so true. We had a coach here that whenever he called me boss man, I knew he wanted something.
No. There's the tell.
The lead was, hey, boss man, what's up? And I'd be like, okay, what's going on? Right. And so, when you're around people so much, Dave, I totally agree with you. And it's almost to a fault for me. I read the room so much that my wife will say, quit reading the room. Like, it's just one of those things that for me, it's like, I feel like I psychoanalyze the conversation a lot, but no, I totally agree with you. When you were talking about this, we go all the way through like just phrasing of emails. Cause next week in my class, we're talking about writing professional emails. So that's literally what, and then you said, when we're sitting here saying, hey, I was just checking in on you. I tell them you can never use hey in an email because I don't know if it's hey, right? I don't know what form or tone it's in. And so, you've got to be particular about some of those things that you're doing because the 51 or 52-year-old person upstairs worries about how you just phrased that thing. You might not even see it because I think that their fallback right now, what I see a lot of times is they communicate that way, right? And so they don't even think about it. Oh, that's not what I meant. right? And then they have enough time to respond back to whoever they're communicating, go, oh, that's not what I meant. I meant this. I wasn't even thinking about that. OMG, I'm so sorry I said that to you. When they're dealing with us, that can't happen. And then what I see is they treat email like texting or DMs. And you've got to sit there and think about things a little bit before you send it out. Because I tell them I have a 3 email rule. And a text rule, if you're asking questions about something and it's more than 3 exchanges, then you better be picking up the phone and calling me, because I'm going to call you next.
Yeah.
Because this is
like
ridiculous.
that.
Like, this is ridiculous. And there's some things I don't want written down. I think a lot of things that they think are like, well, I don't want to talk to them. And there's some things too that I don't necessarily want in writing.
Yeah.
Not that it's egregious, just that I'd rather have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
Luke, I feel like I've been talking a lot and Kurt has, I don't want to interrupt or cut you off.
No, this is good.
You got something there, Luke?
No, I think that's that. I just laugh because that's a lot of our first couple of years together, me and Dave.
I took notes on it too.
He was my like teacher basically when I had my first internship at Donskoff, and then throughout my first couple of years of us working together, it was a lot of that and communicating with him and my bosses and trying to figure out how to write a professional email and figure out, a lot of the time, like me and Dave would like butt heads on something, and I didn't know how to have like a real conversation, and we would just, I would just be pissed for like a day,
Right.
and it would just be like, Coach Luke, why are you so angry? Like, what's going on? And then you're laughing because this happened a lot. It's like the first year, I was like, I just didn't know how to use my words well, and that was something I was never taught, and I think that's huge, and I see that especially now with even former interns. Like, shout out Marcus. I've done a couple things with him where he just reaches out to me now, and it's awesome. And he was never like that for a long time. And I've known him now like 4 or 5 years, and just being able to like pick up and call on the phone and like just shoot it about anything. And that's, I think, what really helped him. I helped him get a job before he moved on to University of Miami. And I think a lot of people don't understand that is even just something subtle and just reaching out to somebody and just texting them or like, hey, thinking about this, thinking about you, hope you're doing well. That stuff goes a really long way. And you never know where that will lead. And it is interesting just how sometimes something as small as that can really change things for you. So, yeah.
My mom always talked about, my mom taught school and always talked about writing thank yous and how personal that was. And so I try to instill to them, like when we have speakers and stuff, outside speakers, we'll write thank yous to a majority of them that they don't personally know. And, things that I discover I never thought, like some of them didn't know how to address an envelope and some of those things. And I'm like, okay, rather than going, oh my God, like, I can't believe this. It's like, if we hadn't done that skill, then when are they ever going to learn it? And so I think there's just things like that. And, I tell them a lot, respect before friendship, never the other way around, right? I think so many times we try to be friends first. And if somebody's truly going to be my friend, then my circle, guys, as I get older, it is tight, right? And I think that I think that hit me a little bit earlier. Like, I didn't really give a rip what a lot of people thought about me that were outside my circle. Inside my circle, I probably paid way too much attention to it. Like, it's overwhelming. But I think that there's those things a lot that I want to instill in our kids, that just like the importance of doing some of those little things to us older adults or people within. It's a good skill set to learn. You want me to try to get down and work Instagram and doing those things. So this week, guess what we're doing? This is intentional layout, right? We're talking about emails and professional memberships tomorrow and doing those things. Later in the week, guess what? We're doing a social media assignment. Do you think I know jack about that stuff? No. So we flipped the classroom, right? So now because now it's this give and take piece. I need to know why you're ripping on my Instagram post.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you write way too much text. Okay, cool. Right. We can tell. We can tell you're old. You're writing way too much text. And that's cool for me because I'll just sit there and go, I appreciate it, right?
Yeah.
I am way old. We're calling a spade, but try to make me blend in a little bit with your world.
Yeah, I don't mean to backtrack too much, but to
No.
Luke's point about our former bosses, we had this thing of linguistic jujitsu, which is the subtle art of getting people to do what you want them to do. That is coaching, right?
Right.
Or if it's conflict management, like you said, we listen first because that's going to determine, it may sound bad, but what traps are available to us, right? Like, and it goes back to, selling a client too, overcoming objections. I mean, it's just, there is an art to using your language to help persuade in a constructive way. So I took a couple of points within that. The medium of the communication absolutely matters. You guys deal in a personal face-to-face space. My coaching is all online. All I do all day is text people through a platform. It's all written. So for me, the tone, I mean, I've had instances before where I said something to a client in a constructive way and it was not received as it was intended. And that's only my fault. I'm the one that typed it. I'm the one that hit send, it's not their fault for how they read it. It's how I should have typed it better. So I deal so much in that space of the written, and I write like an old person. I've been told that. I text like it's an email. Luke can attest to that. I mean, I'm a signature shy of it. Might as well be an email.
Yeah.
So the medium of it absolutely matters. It determines tone, and also about wanting things to not be written. Our boss leaned into me for that once upon a time. I looked at Luke and I was like, I think this email sounds professional. No, it sounds good, right? And I talked to the other coach that was there at the time. I even asked my mom, who taught English for many years. I said, this sounds okay, right? Before I kick it off, she goes, yeah, sounds good to me. I sent it to him. I won't recant the whole story, but essentially prints out the email, highlights it, and says, "You think this is okay to say to somebody?" I said, well, yeah, I did. That's why I said it. What do you? Yeah. He goes, there are some things you just don't want written. So that phrase now haunts me, and the fact that you bring it up is like, you got to be careful about what you type because it can come back.
Yeah, right. So I think that's all contextual, right?
So, of course, yeah.
When because we'll have young professionals text me, and how would you respond to this? Look, listen, I don't know the 3-month backstory on this.
Yeah.
Right? So it's I don't know. In same way that with people that, you're consulting, Dave, to just go, hey, send this forward. Is this okay to send? They don't know the context of it. And yeah, I wouldn't take offense, but also I'm not sitting on a powder keg either. Right. So like those sorts of things I think are really mean a lot. And you gotta know your triggers. And I think all that you can account for is your triggers, right? And so then the art of what we do, I think a lot of it, is just reading other people. And I knew that, and Coach Saint, the lacrosse coach, and I will talk about this all the time. When he first got here, it took me like 6 months to figure out that him and I were never going to get into a public altercation because him and I are too much the same. And so I told him that face to face. I'm pretty blunt about this. I said, if we don't get along and we have something that's going to be behind closed doors, because I'm going to walk away, and I'm going to tell you, I need to walk away and leave. And I know that's going to make you mad, but I'm going to have to. And so I think there's just those things as you get older that you just kind of have to say to people. And then we try to progress that as when they're seniors, because I'll have them come in now and they're like, I haven't heard back from this GA position. I haven't heard back from this internship. What should I do? And so I'll let it go blank for a while. I go, what do you want to know? And they'll go, well, I kind of want to know where I'm at in the process. I said, so what are you afraid about asking them? Like, why don't you want to ask? Well, I don't want to bother them. I said, okay. Well, do you think it's been long enough? I said, how long's long enough? Yeah. Like, you don't know where they're at. Like, let's look at a couple of things. If you're trying to message them during bowl season and you're talking about a Division I football internship, they're probably not going to respond to you until February. All right. So let's respect those things a little bit. But if it's been there, and what are you really trying to figure out? Oh, I've got another offer on the table. Well, then let's just try telling the truth. I just wondered where I'm at in the process with University A, because University B has something in the pot for me. It's about 2 weeks away. I didn't want to discontinue this conversation with you. However, I need to kind of make some plans. then they've got a choice, right? So they've got a choice to respond. Explain while you're asking. Just don't like tap on the window for an hour, right? Like, not, just tell them the truth. That's what. So I think it's so easy sometimes. And I listen to you guys all the time, and I don't mean just this podcast. I mean you guys in general, like younger professionals, because there are times where us older people need to sit down and go, that was a good little tidbit right there, and I could use that. And this was the case. I had a young athletic training staff member tell me one time, Kurt, it's easier to make the right decision the first time than the wrong decision the first time, because if you make the right decision the first time, it's going to be easier to make the right decision every time. And I'm like, it's so simple, but it's the truth, because ultimately, if you make the easy out wrong decision, then you're going to fall down that trap, and people are going to come back and go, well, you did it for this team, you did it for this client, you did it for this. And although that first initial gut pit feeling you have in your gut may be tough to make that decision, it's still the right thing to do sometimes. And then it's just easier. Hey, this is the way I managed Dave last time. I'm Luke. This is the same thing that Dave brought to me. I chose to handle it this way. So we're going to continue to do that. It's already been established. Right? Now, it doesn't mean my way or the highway. It just means you've thought about it and you're treating people equally.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody wants the fair thing. And it's not always about that. It's just kind of setting up the guidelines that there's a process for you to make a decision, not unlike programming.
Yeah.
Right.
Consistency and accountability.
I laughed a couple of weeks ago because I texted Luke right away, Dave, after one of your shows. I was like, when you guys were talking about all these testing things, and if you needed to do tests to have them progress on and those sorts of things, and I was getting fired up. I was like, there's some things in here that I'm adamant about, because our kids don't know progressions and regressions. Do I think you need to test them? Not all the time, but I think they need to show you. And it's not unlike conversation to me. Like, you can't go there with me until you've been there with me some way else, right? Yeah. And so like, we've had young professionals try to slide into my role or a role that's similar to what you guys do, and then they try to act like you. They can't do that, right? They can't do that because you haven't established that background.
Yeah.
Context, right?
Context.
Oh, it's good.
Consistency and accountability.
Yes. That's the other piece, Dave. I really agree with you on that. The consistency piece is huge.
Yeah.
I want to know what I'm dealing with. And I tell kids that all the time. I want to know if you're going to be a jerk or if you're going to be a, what to me, because at least I can count on that all the time.
Yeah.
I can't count on hitting this.
Yeah.
Right. So those people taught me a lot. Those people that were like, there's a leadership style there that taught me a lot. You better be on your toes around some of these Division I head coaches, because they were always looking for something to be wrong. Yeah. And so it taught me a lot to be prepared, to be organized. Luke and I had this conversation. It's like, man, I don't know if I really call myself organized. Well, if you got your butt ripped every day for it, then you were going to figure it out in a hurry.
Yeah.
My dad being from the military, he got that. And that's what I tell my kids. If you're going to do a Division I internship, do it. Do it for the 2 months. Do it for 2.5 months, because then it's a short dosage. If you don't like it, you can get out of it. But they're going to pressure you just to make decisions. They're going to pressure you to do things they don't want to do. And they're going to look at how you respond. It's not about how you do it. They're going to look about how you respond. And I think it's great. And I'll loop back to something you guys said earlier, because this guy's sitting here, when you establish those relationships and you have people in the field, and Luke's no different. And Dave, I hope that someday, through establishing a relationship through Luke, that you can bounce things off to me or just say, hey, how's it going? Because when you have students call you back and they're just going, I don't need anything. I just called to see how things were going. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? I'll talk to you for an hour and a half in the car if that's the case, right? And do, because I think it's that important. Zoom call, right? Those sorts of things I think are so important. And the fact that our students come back and want to do that now, that makes me so much more proud than kids passing the CSCS exam.
Yeah.
Or any job that they would get, because they're treating other people the right way. And they're saying, I see what you said. And I don't need them to say that. I just need them to give me a call because they care about me and how I'm doing. Yeah.
So we talked about leadership roles early. You did when you were going through your background, and sometimes it resulted in failure and learning and growth from that. And then we also talked a couple of times about the sterility of the classroom and kids kind of being in a protection bubble. And I do jujitsu in the mornings on Sundays. It's when I go through my paces and get beat up sometimes. So this is my kind of frame of reference for this morning. But it's like, you go to a fundamentals class, there's a certain set of rules there that, you're learning. You're learning the etiquette. You're learning the technique for the day and what have you. And as you scale up and as you move up in belts, not that I'm very far along, you get attacked with more force. That's the progression is you are better equipped to handle more complex, more dangerous situations. So back to the strength and conditioning side of things, there's definitely a time for that, sterileness when you're learning how to put together a program. My background is exercise science, more so kinesiology, as opposed to strength and conditioning. Kind of found my way into that. And you want it to be clean at some point because they have to learn kind of where this goes and that goes, and they don't get beat up too much. But then, when you toss them into the weight room, I remember this where Luke and I used to work together. Our boss would always say, it's the keys to the Ferrari, right? You want to coach these athletes, you want to lead them. You need to learn how to lead before you're handed those keys. And I mean, it's dangerous if you have, like you said, none of the context, none of the background, none of the education, none of the logistics awareness. Right, because you can have all of the progressions and regressions, front of mind and have the program down. But when you walk in a room, there's 3 or 4 racks and there's 20 or 30 guys that need to move through. You're like, but the plan.
Right.
And there's something to, metaphorically getting punched in the face like that you learn quick.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought that was an interesting kind of idea of you want the bubble to be there, but at some point that bubble has to pop. And we
Yeah.
have to fail and we have to grow. And it's, I think, kind of akin to that AT to strength and conditioning spectrum, right? At some point we're at rehab, then we build up, and at some point we return to play, and at some point we're better and stronger than we were before. And that is kind of the circle of life within
Yeah.
the field, it seems.
Yeah, it's a continuum, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what there is to that. It just kind of was thinking about it.
It's crazy when we have these things, right? So I'm sitting here saying stuff, and then you sit here and you say something back about what I say, and then I hear you say stuff, and I'm like thinking about what I said. And I'm like, that's
the echo
a really
chamber
good point.
of the pod. Yeah.
It's a really good point, because as freshmen, I don't expect them to present on their programming for in season. They're not even there yet. Mm-hmm. So in this graduated piece of trying to get them to the best situation they can be as a junior, Dave and Luke, is important for me. So in a freshman class, I'll have them present on one exercise to a group of 25 people. They hate it. Like, it's terrible. They don't do that great. Like, they're asking all these questions, but it's this first attempt to try to get out and do these things. So their sophomore year, when they're in a programming or they're in an application class, then they're doing a rotation out to see our students working with the strength and conditioning coach at the time, looking at that environment, kind of getting their feet in the water, but they're able to run back out if they don't feel comfortable yet because they're not doing it. And they're starting to see things and be able to comment on them that they're learning in class, right? And those things are established. Now, from the athletic training model, Dave, like Luke already knows this, I'm kind of telling, I took that some of the best learning I had was on the floor or at the practice field, when I could talk to kids that we had talked about things that morning, and then we see it that afternoon. Now, I didn't want anybody to get hurt, but the ultimate thing, it may just be an organizational piece. So now that we can combine that real life, how can I do that in strength and conditioning? Then during COVID, I was getting all these answers from these Division I coaches because I'd contact every one of them. Here's what we're doing. I'm doing a strength and conditioning major. What would you want to do over again or have in that major? And they would preach and preach and preach to me. More on the floor experience, more on the floor experience, more on the floor experience. So then I go, we really need to set up a practicum like athletic training with our students before they go to their internship. Let's give them a place to fail. Let's give them some of those things. And I'm going to tell you, all of our kids that have been placed within the last 3-year period, they've been the only undergrad students there at those facilities. All the rest of them have been grad students. And so I think I like to think it's working a little bit. I like to think that we're preparing these kids for that situation. And now, Dave, in constant like change mode for me, now I'm looking at a practicum too, because these kids come back with this maturity and they do a lot there. Now, how can we get them in a bigger role of maybe under the staff, independently running a golf or running a tennis, right? With someone else over the top of them kind of controlling that, but yet give them some more freedom to maybe help with a testing regime or do something like that that they've picked up and now can apply when they come back from their internship. I feel like there's a gap missing now from their junior to their real job type of thing. And so we're working on that piece. I'm always thinking about those things. And so when you were talking about this progression, this bubble and when to pop it, I think you make them feel uncomfortable early on, but you can't ask them to do things they're not ready for. And so then how do you accelerate that process? And I think it is a lot like periodization or planning of those things and that model. And I think we're much more organized, Luke, than we give ourselves credit for sometimes. Like, I think we because if I compare myself to my wife, she's organized beyond behind anything. Like I will ask her those things, those tough things, review emails, do all those things. And I have to laugh because you guys were talking about working on writing and doing those sorts of things. This cat right here, there are some really good, like I can tell you the people that write good emails and they're very eloquent writers at ONU. And I look at everything they write. And my wife is one of them. I'm not afraid to say that. And then when she throws back, she goes, man, did you write that email all by yourself? And I'm 51 years old. Right. And I'm going, I'll take that. Right. That means it's getting better. Right. That means it's getting better. And that's hard to take critique from someone you really respect and do that. And that was very difficult for me early on from my mentors to not think they're looking at everything that you're doing. And once you establish that relationship, it's okay. I'm just telling you, you could have worded it like this. You should have done it like this. Right. And I just try to get that established to our kids every day. And then they get comfortable talking to me. Right. And as soon as that boundary's kind of broken and I go, maybe a little too comfortable, then we just go, hey, I don't want to hear about that because then I have to address it. So we're done.
I love when you said that. I say that all the time now.
Yeah.
That is the one thing definitely with athletes, like, especially when they get old enough to do things that are more adult. It's like, listen, fellas, like, this is not something that I want to talk about with you guys,
Right. I'm not saying
boundaries are necessary. Boundaries are necessary.
Right. It's bumper bullying. That's what I tell them. And you said get punched in the face. That's when you hit the little rail, dude. And that puts you back to the center.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need that.
A little course correction is necessary every once in a while.
Right. I need it now. Right. I need it now.
Oh man.
Anything else, Luke?
This has been awesome. No, I think this has really covered a lot that I had, and I know that we could have Kurt on probably every time and just talk about awesome different things that could either be strength conditioning or communication or even athletic training, which is great. I loved that insight on that because I think that's something that is not talked about enough, and a lot of people don't have that history and have that background to kind of talk about all these different things, which is interesting because it feels like athletic training is pushing more now to be more education based into strength conditioning and have their CSCS and it's kind of growing in that way. And the other way too, as well, with other like strength conditioning coaches are now having their athletic training degrees or certifications. And it's crazy.
I agree with you. And I just want to tell you guys, I was laughing and joking. I was probably one of your first 6 listeners. I love this crap. I'm not kidding you. I eat this stuff up and I tell people about it every time I see them because and my wife will tell you when I retire, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to wake up, but I want to do it early. I want to get my day going, be done with this. But I think it's just, whether it's talking sports, talking about profession, the podcast world has taken you into this mini convention that everybody likes some of the convention stuff, right?
Yeah.
They like to go to the speakers, but they also like just the low keyness of talking to people about it at breakfast or at lunch or around a beer or something like that. And the podcast does a great job of just kind of morphing those together.
Absolutely.
And you can hear really what people are talking about in their shop or whatever it may be. And I think that I just want to say thank you for people, because I know it's a lot of work. I get that. It's a lot of planning and to do these sorts of things and to reach and now to expand, because now it's going to be more difficult for you to organize people and do those things. Yeah. And when you're only dealing with the two of you, it's a little bit easier. But I just appreciate it, first of all, to be offered to be on the show. But I think what you're doing for the profession in general, just to make it out there to people, is awesome. And we need more advocates, right, on this end. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, that's why I love education so much, is you get the opportunity to get a touch point with those young people, and hopefully they're good people and they're better professionals as we kind of go through it. And so I appreciate you just let me have a chance to talk about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
We appreciate you being on.
Yeah. Is there anywhere we can follow you? So if our listeners could follow you on like your platforms, or is there somewhere
what are those handles? What are those handles?
Or somewhere to reach out to you?
Yeah. So ONUSC Ed is the Instagram piece, and I try to post as much as we can on there. I've kind of gotten away from the X Twitter platform a little bit, just not because of any social media types of things. I just need to focus on one and kind of do it. And I'm not even doing that great there, but they can contact me on my ONU email address as well. They can find that on the website, or kwilson.1@onu.edu. And I'd be happy to talk to them and answer more questions about our program or anything.
Yeah. We'll link all that in the show notes. That's awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Luke's going to take us out.
All right, countdown. Let's do it. Okay. 3, 2, 1. All right. See you guys.